Okay, so now that the recording has started, I can officially welcome everybody to the information session for the 2024 application cycle of the Alt Protein project. I'm really glad that you are all joining us so that we can be learning a little bit more about what this will look like. So we'll be spending the next hour exploring the project, seeing how you can fit the project into your university, and how you can join the community to become that Alt Protein champion as a student and in your developing career. Now, I do want to get everybody warmed up a little bit before we get going. So in the chat, I would love to get your response to this question of what you think the hardest animal product to replicate will be for alternative protein technology. Sensing a theme here. We've got a lot of fish, some steak. And I know it might seem counterintuitive for me to start off with like, well, what is going to be really hard? But that's the exciting thing about this field is for those scientists in the room or people who would facilitate the science, that means that there is work to be done, and that is work that you can actually actively contribute to. And that's part of what we do at the Alt Protein Project. So over the next about 30 minutes, we will be going over this agenda. For those of you who have not met me before, my name is Nathan Ahlgrim, and I am the Academic Community Manager at the Good Food Institute. That means that I have the privilege of working directly with students like you across the globe as they work within the Alt Protein Project, with the overall goal of growing their universities into engines of alt protein education, research, and innovation in the space. I'm joined on the call by my academic community coordinators, Asia and Hannah, who are fantastic parts of the team and really keep everything going. So if you have questions throughout, again, you are welcome to drop that in the chat, and they can either address it in the chat or they can just interrupt me to make sure that I address it when it is relevant. So y'all know what to expect. I plan to spend only about half of this time really presenting this information, because I am a firm believer that the most useful information is that specific information that comes from questions by all of you. So I'll start by introducing the project and the Good Food Institute. I'll talk about what criteria we have for our program, go over some pointers on the application itself, and highlight some of the aspects that I really think make our program special. So we'll leave plenty of time for question and answer throughout. And before we get going, I just want to acknowledge and kind of provide a disclaimer that there will be a lot of words on these slides. I spent some time as a teacher and I try to avoid that often, but they are there so that people can use this resource, this slide deck afterwards with all of the information that you need. So you don't need to feel like you need to read everything or write notes down. We'll be sending a copy of this presentation afterwards. Let's get into it. So describing the Alt Protein Project, I'm sure many of you have read our information on our website. But of course, before we talk about the project, it makes a lot of sense to give some background on the organization that hosts it, the Good Food Institute. And so this is where Asia, Hannah, and I work, of course. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, the Good Food Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are based in the US organization on our team, and our whole goal is developing a roadmap for a sustainable, secure, and just protein supply. Now, the three of us come from the Science and Technology Department, where we really work to advance everything that means. So help facilitate the research and development through scientific collaboration, ensuring that there is adequate scientific funding, and all sorts of building that ecosystem. We also have a corporate engagement team working directly with multinational organizations to food startups and everywhere in between. And we have a really strong policy arm to ensure that there is that level playing field that helps alternative proteins break into the marketplace in a way that allows it to be accessible to consumers. Now, one of the most exciting parts and greatest strengths of our organization is that we have a network of international affiliates, and that allows us to address the conditions and needs of people and government across the globe. Because we recognize, and I'm sure all of you recognize as well, that everything from the crops grown to the political environments to the diversity of food cultures across the globe would make it impossible for the alternative protein industry to succeed if it looked the same everywhere. And so that is one of the great things about having these regional presences across the globe. And our driving mission, our driving strategy is around the challenge of the current state of industrialized animal agriculture. We have seen there is plenty of evidence to show that it is unsustainable and inefficient. We also know that people enjoy and want and sometimes need these foods. With modern technology and all of the things that we can work together on in the alt protein project, we have the technology to create meat, eggs, and dairy more sustainably and efficiently from plants, producing them from fermentation and cultivating them directly from cells. And so alternative proteins offer us the strategy of not asking people to give up the foods they love, because we know that that is often a losing proposition, but instead changing the default option to alternative proteins that are as if not more delicious, as if not more affordable, and as if not more accessible. So I will not really be getting into the science behind alternative proteins in this presentation. If you are new to the space or just kind of want to build your knowledge, I would strongly recommend that you spend some time on our website in general, where we have scientific deep dives, as well as working through our free MOOC, our massive open online course that goes through the fundamentals of the alternative protein space. But we do define alternative proteins in these three pillars of plant-based meats, of products made through fermentation of microbial hosts, and cultivated meat. And that brings us finally to why we are all here, the Alt Protein Project. And our theory of change is really around student leaders. We recognize the unique power that all of you have. We find, train, and empower student leaders at key universities to build those academic ecosystems that's really needed for the alternative protein ecosystem to succeed. And I fully recognize that in my position, I'm incredibly biased, but I really do firmly believe that the Alt Protein Project is crucial to the growth of this industry. There is a huge gap between the number of people we need to make this vision a reality and the people who are actively trained and exposed to the opportunities in it. There really are still only a handful of university-level courses and other educational opportunities in the entire world. And at this point, most of them have actually been founded through work of leaders of the Alt Protein Project. And so that means that we need more leaders like that, more leaders like you. Across the globe, universities are not the standard way that people are getting trained and exposed and doing research in alternative proteins. And so we need folks like you to stimulate that change. And we grow around 5 objectives, ones that are often more common in student activism and awareness of generating awareness of the topic and building that community, but also then directly helping evolve your universities in building those education programs, in stimulating research either at the professor level or starting research programs yourself, and innovation, engaging in industry, whether that mean starting your own company with a startup or with working directly with regional industry players. These next 2 slides are some of what makes me most excited about what we have done, because in 2020, we started with a very small community, a pilot cohort of 5 universities that you see here. And this is what we look like today at the beginning of the year. We had 51 active groups active Active groups, active, in fact, yes. I'm working on it, I promise. But at the beginning of the year, 51 across 18 countries or more, depending on how you count one of our groups. And so what this really indicates is the extent to which we truly are a global community. And I'll, of course, talk a little bit more about why that's so important in a bit. And what that means is that there are so many opportunities to connect, to do work, to capitalize on each other's work, and really form a collaborative network that allows all of our work to be even better. This is just, of course, a very small snapshot of different events that our groups have participated in. We were able to join together in person in last year's Good Food Conference that GFI hosted in September of last year. But also our groups host their own events all the time, whether it be with food tastings, industry, tours, or anything else. So just a small snapshot of what you can be doing with your group. And what I am putting up here is just a snapshot of the last 6 months. And really, what might be most exciting is depending on your goals as a student leader and a young professional. So yes, we have a thriving community of hundreds of active members, but I love leaning into figures like this. More than 20 jobs and internships gotten directly through our program and the connections that that stimulates. Research projects started, courses, programs, and modules initiated, again, within an ecosystem globally that doesn't have a lot of alternative protein education opportunities. So that's really showing the unique impact that alt protein project leaders can have. And before we go into the application and everything, I just kind of wanted to lean into this fact that you are really the first generation who can start your career in alternative proteins, just because of how young the field is. As one example, I'll just kind of go over my brief career trajectory to also demonstrate that no matter what your current education background, there is a place for you here. So I actually have my training in neuroscience. It's not exactly what I do right now, but I spent some time teaching in the forest. I spent some time teaching in a regular classroom. I spent some time leading an environmental summer camp, and that was actually a work picture. So like I've kind of been doing a lot of different things, but now I am firmly rooted in the alternative protein industry. And all of my experience really allowed me to be successful here. And it's not just me. So the CEO of Upside Foods, Uma Valetti, as many of you may be familiar with, started his career as a medical doctor. And he recognized that contributing to alternative proteins, you can actually help the health of many more people than interacting with them on a one-on-one level as a medical doctor. And sometimes it's people in your position that's actually needed to get more senior professionals into the industry. As one of many examples, Dr. Amy Roat of UCLA did not have a research program that had anything to do with food at the beginning. She was always very passionate of food and integrated that into her educational offerings. But it was a conversation with one of her graduate students, now Dr. Stephanie Kowecki, that inspired her to build her research program into cultivated meat. So that was someone in your position that facilitated now one of the strongest labs in the space to enter cultivated meat research. Again, that's the power that we have here. Now we can dig into some of the program criteria. And first, we want to think about what universities are a good fit. And the reason we focus our efforts on research universities is because one of the core bottlenecks that's constraining production and uptake is basic research and development. So we're looking for leaders at research universities that have the foundations for a sustainable, a long-lasting alternative protein ecosystem. And a lot of times that means that the university has established mechanisms to facilitate student leadership. And you can capitalize on those. Now, research programs are not all-inclusive because, especially with the current status of the field, many of our research partners, including some of our grantees, entered the alternative protein space as a side project. So recognize that, like, even if there's not active alternative protein research going on at your university, you still very well might be an ideal university to enter into this space. We are also really keen on partnering with universities within a region of established agricultural technology, biotechnology, or other manufacturing capabilities, because it allows for that really tight collaboration with industry. And we want universities with any programs in the many sciences that enable alternative protein innovation, anything from tissue engineering to fermentation science, plant biology. Again, there are many in there that can be directly relevant.
Nathan, can I pause you?
And this will be one of course.
We have a question in the chat asking for you to elaborate on what you mean by side projects that students or others could explore within the university.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I should have clarified. Thank you for flagging that. So by side project, what I mean by that is the professors, the faculty who run a lab tend to have a primary focus of their research. Maybe it is in, let's take tissue engineering as an example. It's tissue engineering for the sake of constructing more effective skin transplants. You can tell this is not my area of expertise, but hopefully it's making enough sense. And that still is the primary focus of their research, but they are inspired maybe by one of their students to use their tissue engineering expertise to see if they can contribute to the scale up of cultivated meat, because you are still growing tissue. This time it is just animal muscle tissue. And so even though the overall focus of their lab has not changed, they are adding essentially a side project, a smaller project off their full research program to include alternative proteins. Does that fully explain and answer your question? Well, if not, you can stop me again. I want to make... Cool, good to know. All right. So as I was saying, this is going to be the first of many times where I really want to emphasize our commitment to a diverse community in the Alt Protein Project. And I mean that in all aspects in terms of the diversity of our students, the diversity of where they are coming from, based on country and region, based on the type of university. So of course, big research powerhouses are fantastic partners, as are land-grant universities, minority-serving institutions, primarily undergraduate institutions, and others. The reason that I'm saying this is if you saw this slide, you heard what I read, and you questioned whether your university is a good fit, please do not self-reject. Our application does not actually take that long, and if anything, it can serve as the opening of a conversation so that we can start exploring what that might look like. I really hope that nobody comes out of here thinking like, oh wait, no, I'm not the right person for this. So of course, universities are a big factor, but what we have noticed is even more important than where a student is coming from, it is who that student is. So we are looking for an application with a group of at least 2 co-organizers. So you need at least one partner. Of course, larger teams are encouraged. And we're looking for both who are firmly committed to our mission of that sustainable, secure, and just protein supply. The entire leadership board does need to be actively enrolled in a degree program. So when we say this is student-led, that is exactly what we mean. And we do ask for a dedication of time between 5 and 10 hours a week to run that successful group. And we recognize not everybody will fit these following characteristics, but we do need at least one person of the application team to have some experience in community organizing, have experience in management and strategic planning of a group, and be housed in one of those key scientific disciplines of alternative proteins. I do also want to make a note here that many of our strongest leaders come from outside of the STEM fields, outside of the sciences. We have leaders in policy and law, business, economics, and more. But we have found the group as a whole to be most effective when at least one leader is positioned within the scientific discipline, and that's really for the sake of university engagement and relevant fluency of scientific research. So again, not everybody needs to be in the sciences or STEM fields, but at least one of your application team should be. And we want someone with a deep understanding of the alternative protein field. If that's not you yet, again, we have so many resources on our website that by the time of your application, you definitely could be. And we are working to make sure that there is some level of consistency and sustainability. So we're looking for at least one person who will not be graduating for a little over 2 years, just to make sure that you can get the group up and running and not have everybody leave just as it gets started. For the application itself. So of course, step one, you need to build your team. If you're here all by yourself, well, you have plenty of time to find people who are excited to do this with you. That can be in your classes. If you are actively engaged in laboratory research, it might be someone from your lab. Or if you're in another student group that is somewhat aligned, you might ask them at one of your meetings. Of course, apply, please do so. Applications close March 29th. We will be doing brief interviews for those that advance to the next round. Again, this is not meant to be a quiz or high stakes. We just want to learn more about your goals and your experience. For those who we select then to join our cohort, all of our new groups will go through our 6-week training program. It will be held online, of course, and that really goes over the fundamentals of running a successful group, the fundamentals of alternative proteins, and some of the best practices on how to make progress towards the objectives that we have outlined. And then in August, that's when we officially unveil our new cohort to the rest of the world. You'll meet the existing groups of the Alt Protein Project, and that will really open up a lot of opportunities. As I just said, applications are due by March 29th. We'll be dropping those links, and again, you'll have access to this presentation afterwards. So make sure, really just go through our prerequisites. Most of them are what I just said, but you want to make sure that your application team does fit that. Read about how we encourage groups to advance our programmatic objectives. We have a resource hub that walks through a lot of opportunities and options for you. So you can come in to the application and the interview process with some ideas. Now, this does not mean that you need to come up with brand new ideas, because replicating some of the successes that have already happened is a perfect way to have a huge impact. So it's just about getting some strategic planning done ahead of time. And also just don't worry about perfecting your answers. We're looking for something that is thoughtful, but we do not want you obsessing over this and taking hours upon hours. We really just want to know who you are and what your goals are. And finally, we want this application process to be as inclusive as possible. So if you and your applicant team are coming from somewhere that you are not as familiar with anything, whether it be the alternative protein ecosystem, whether it be that English is not your first language, we will not be penalizing you for that. If English is not your first language, we do not grade based on grammar. We do not grade on anything like that. So please, again, do not self-reject. Put the application in and we will work with you. We also have our team across the globe that will be evaluating applications to, again, ensure that essentially nothing is lost in translation, that they are able to hopefully better understand the context in which you are writing. And we will also consider geographic breakdown for our cohort. Because we are striving to be globally inclusive, that means we want representation from countries that are not currently represented, or regions that are not currently represented. So again, if you did not see a pin anywhere near where you are based, that can actually be a good thing, because we are absolutely looking to get representation in your area. So looking ahead, and here's where we can talk about both options. If you are not selected for our cohort, I fully encourage you to start an alternative protein group, an independent group at your university anyways. Again, we have so many resources available just to the public that it means you can get started. And that really does then position you perfectly to make a stronger application the following year. And we do plan on opening applications around this time next year, because more than anything, we won't, just to be fully transparent, we probably won't be able to accept as many groups as we want this year, just because we don't have the ability to have all of a sudden a cohort of 100. That would be wonderful. We can't do that. Our main goal is to help you be successful champions, regardless of whether you have an official affiliation with the Alt Protein Project. To go through some frequently asked questions, just to make sure that nothing is left unsaid, having a co-founder is a requirement. We have seen that time and time again, that sets people up for success. We are open to anyone in a degree-seeking program, graduate, undergraduate, master's, Ph.D., whatever that might look like. We are open to any student of the sort. As I just said, we are, in fact, not only open to, but excited to expand the Alt Protein Project in regions that are not currently represented. And if you are on this call or you are curious and you are not in a degree-seeking program, maybe you're faculty, maybe you are departmental staff, there is absolutely a role for you as well. We are always seeking faculty champions as additional mentors of our groups or other ways to help facilitate their work. Please reach out to me directly, and I would love to see what that might look like. Then it comes to how we support you. And we do have many ways of doing that. So I want to make sure that we outline those. So of course, first, even before you are announced, we have that training program. And that will help ensure that we all have the same set of skills of specific things to alternative proteins with the current state of the science, the state of the industry, but also just the general skills of managing and helping run an effective team. So how to create and lead impactful events, mapping your university ecosystem to see who else can help you, and just developing that strategic mindset so that you can be the most effective change makers at your university. We also provide very extensive strategic mentorship and guidance. We have strategy documents and templates that help you basically get set up for success so that you can have those big goals of how you want to change the university and have all those stepping stones to help you get there so that you can break it down into much more manageable chunks. And it's not like we just give you those documents and leave you to figure it out on your own. Every group will be assigned a regional mentor, many of whom are staff at GFI and our different international affiliates. So you'll see some familiar faces, myself, Asia, and Hannah, as obvious examples, but we have staff across the world as well. But as groups, you also have access to our global team of subject matter experts, whether that be specific into the science of plant-based meats, of cultivated meat, subject matter expertise in the policy and regulation, or the engagement with industry players. We have dozens, and at this point, more than hundreds of staff who can give you that subject matter expertise to, again, help your work there. I promise we are getting close to the end, so we can transition to your questions soon. But again, just leaning into the resources that we have available. What I love about GFI is that we publish everything in an open access way. So again, even if you do not officially join the Alt Protein Project, we do have so many resources that are available. Things like our State of the Science and State of the Industry reports, which are really geared towards a general audience. We have open access material specifically designed for student leaders, which is in that resource hub that Hannah dropped a link to a couple of minutes ago. And we also have resources designed specifically for and sometimes by alt protein project groups. So we have case studies of effective projects that other groups have done to kind of show you, not just in theory, but in practice, what does it take? And these other templates to, again, help you understand where you fit in your university. A big part of it is also just having some supports and ongoing trainings. So we have roughly monthly community calls that are sometimes around workshops of building certain skills, designing events, having effective recruiting, kind of whatever topic is most in need at the time. We have a community Slack that it enables people to share resources and stay in the know outside of these formal sessions like that. And we also provide funding for our groups because we don't want you to have to pay for these things out of your own pocket. All of which to say that this support really is ongoing. For anything that you need, that is literally our job to help support you. We also serve to amplify your group voices and stories. And that is a very large power of what the Good Food Institute can do because of the position that we have in the industry. Scientists, entrepreneurs, funders, governments, they all view GFI as a source of authority. And that means that when you do something amazing, you start a new career, you build a research program, you build educational programs, we can give you a larger platform in which to present that. One great example is at our Good Food Conference, three of our student leaders presented on the main stage of that international conference, which was a fantastic opportunity. And I'll tell you, they were incredible. They knocked it out of the park. And so that gives, again, a greater window and exposure to their work. And finally, groups engage with industry, and industry is excited to work with the Alt Protein Project. I said finally, there's actually one more. Sorry about that. But groups have established sponsorships with different companies. They have done factory tours. They have gotten internships and jobs. At this point, more than 90 internships and jobs have been landed by our members. And in many ways, these positions can be thought of as like the culmination of your time at the Alt Protein Project. I just want everybody to remember there is so much more to our community. And I really do believe that this network helps make those dreams a reality. As one example of why industry is so excited, it's because you are the talent that they are looking for. And they recognize the value and power, which kind of enables those first few emails, if you have ever done cold emails to industry and companies and no response, well, it's a lot more likely to get a response as a part of this community. And it's just nice not to do it alone, honestly. So these are some statements from our other student leaders talking about, just being able to propel each other and the work of their chapters forward. It gives renewed motivation. And sometimes it's just learning from each other so that you learn what works and you don't have to repeat the same mistakes. All of this really does help because it means that you are not just relying on your leadership team at your university. You are learning from now experts, student leader experts across the globe. And that is the biggest power that I see in our community. And of course, sometimes we just hang out and have fun because we're all doing this since we love it. And coming around a shared goal in that way, again, can just be so reinvigorating. Kind of like this very information session is reinvigorating to me. So with that, I have said my piece. I hope you can tell how excited I am about the prospect of welcoming so many of you to our new cohort. And I'm sure I have left some questions unanswered. So now I will turn it over to the Q&A session. As a reminder, you're welcome to drop your question in the chat or come off mute and ask it directly. So now I will stop sharing so we can all see each other a little bit better. And you can ask whatever you would like.
Hello, so I'm Ben from Aston University. We have already set up a student society for cultivated meat. And we're wondering if we apply for the alternative protein project, would we still have our society, but under the GFI umbrella, or would we be suddenly the Alternative Protein Project Society at Aston University?
Would we have to rebrand?
Yeah. Can we keep our fun logo?
Yeah. That's a great question, and you are not the first group to have done that. Two great examples are the Alt Protein Project groups at Cambridge and at the Colorado School of Mines that happened in this past year. So the short answer to that is, if you are joining our community, we do ask for that rebrand so that you become the Alt Protein Project of Aston University, as an example. If you wanted to keep that independent group going so that it is specifically focused on cultivated meat, you would be welcome to. That would not be a part of this community, since we would be looking for promotion of all alternative proteins under the banner and the brand of the Alt Protein Project.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And specifically how that looks like, that's something that we would work with you on if we get to that point. Okay, so there were a number of questions, so I'll try and get them one by one. Talking about being a PhD student with other co-founders being PhD students. We have had many successful groups doing that, so it's not like we require undergraduate and graduate students. We have found that when possible, that having that diversity of undergraduate and graduate leads to the most successful groups because they have access to different parts of the university. But it is in no ways a requirement. Again, please do not self-reject. As PhD students, as a previous PhD student, I know that there is a lot of fantastic work to be done, especially in the research ecosystem.
Yeah,
this
so the
may-
question,
Sorry,
so
go ahead.
my question regarding this was, especially regarding the founding team, because afterwards, like obviously I would do lots of marketing to get a lot of undergraduate and graduate students. Yeah, like bachelor's and master's. And my question is more regarding the management or like the leaders, because for me it would also be important that the people have some knowledge in cultured meat or like have like previous work experience so that we can like start like, because it's so much to build, so it's better obviously if like everyone like has some experience. But on the other hand, I was also thinking that maybe if there's like an extremely motivated bachelor or master student, then obviously that person would be perfect. So yeah, just wanted to hear your opinion about it.
I love the fact that you were already thinking strategically about how to build your team, because this is exactly the kind of conversations that we have with our groups as they are starting. So in terms of the application, again, there is not the expectation that you have full representation from all of your university. And that really wouldn't affect one way or the other, as long as we have, this is not for your application, but just so everyone else listening, as long as we have an indication that there is sustainability of the group. Again, people will not all be graduating in the next year.
Yeah.
Now, for the success of building the group, most of our really successful groups have some form of elections for their leadership board. And in that way, the people with the most experience with the skills needed tend to rise to the top, and they have the motivation to enter into those elections. And so the specifics of those cases tend to be not just about your university, but about the individual students themselves who are interested in leadership positions. And that's something that, luckily, because as you can tell, I'm probably keeping this very general, your regional mentor who is assigned to your group will help you work out those different opportunities.
Okay, nice. Then I had some more questions. Yeah, the second one is, so I think maybe it applies for other people as well, but in many big cities, they are like, for example, I saw someone from Korea. So for example, you would have someone from KAIST and also someone from SMU. In my case, it's like LMU and TUM. And if we found now a TUM group, can also like LMU students join? Because that would make sense.
That, yes. Again, these are great, like, strategic-minded questions. In general, there are a few exceptions, but in general, we organize groups around universities.
Mm-hmm.
So as one example, we have 2 groups in Singapore. Yes, it is a city-state, but it is also a city. And those universities have independent groups. They collaborate very frequently, but they are independently run. The exception to that, if I have any people who are calling in from India, the strategic plan of our international affiliates in India, they have organized their groups around a city. So in Delhi, the University of Delhi and Ashoka University are co-organized and co-run. So in many ways, it depends on what is most effective in the region. Again, for the sake of the application, that is something that would not really be evaluated by our team. So you are welcome to go forward with the co-organizers within your university. And then to wrap up your text questions, co-founders, as long as you have a team of 2, that is all we are looking for. And we see incredibly strong applications anywhere. To be honest, last year we had a co-founding team of about 20. That was atypical, I will say. But typically like 2 to 5 tends to be very strong. And for the interview, just for the sake of getting everybody on the call, the opportunity to speak, we ask for no more than 3, just so you are aware.
Okay.
All right. Addressing other questions, what does it mean to be a founding member? That would basically be anybody who is on the application. So the person who actually writes and submits it, but also the team that is written down might be a part of the interview and is basically expressing they will be the ones initiating and starting that group. I'm not entirely clear about the question of founding a group at different universities. If you mean one that you are not enrolled in, we ask that every group be founded by students at that host university. If that is not what you were asking, please feel free to follow up.
Yeah. Sorry. Did you say all members have to be enrolled at the same university, all founding members?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a situation. We have interested students at different universities in Vienna, but they would have to come from the same university, or like all from University of Vienna and not technical University of Vienna.
Now that is something, it sounds like that was similar to the previous question. Depending on how closely your universities collaborate regularly, that may be an exception. And so I would encourage you, if you want to follow up, email me directly and kind of outline the organizers, the ways that your universities and the team would collaborate. What we have recognized in being a global group is that university ecosystems do not look the same everywhere. And so we cannot have a one-size-fits-all project. If you think that it would be most effective in Vienna to have a inter-university group, please email me and we can explore that together.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, just to clarify, all founding members have to be university students enrolled at a university.
That is correct. You
There's
are
no
welcome. Sorry?
There's no exception.
Correct.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Now, we welcome and encourage groups to seek faculty, mentors, and advisors, whether that is a formal position or not. If there are postdoctoral students who are interested, they can sign on to indicate that they are participating. As long as you still have 2 students as the co-organizing team, that is what we are looking for. We are primarily putting this to ensure that the leadership, the board of directors, as it were, are all students, so that this can remain a student-led initiative. I do see someone coming from Tel Aviv University. Yes, we do have a few chapters who have become inactive Oftentimes that is when students graduate and we're not able to find somebody to take it on. If you have an inactive chapter, you would be going through the exact same application process as everybody else. And what that means is there may be some existing resources to help you get started and some existing infrastructure. Asking about the degree to which you need concrete plans versus ideas. We do not expect a fully formed strategic plan. So if you have goals, again, you see the research objective and you think, well, I'm a part of a lab. What I would love is to have a program so that some senior theses can be specific to alternative protein research. I could do that by working with my professor. That would basically be the extent of the plan we would be expecting in the application process. Oh, I didn't scroll down. Hannah already answered that. Good thing that we said basically the same things. Okay, asking about the time commitment. Always a good question, especially as PhD students. Again, I remember that life. It can be very hard. That is very much an average of work. So if there are times around your qualifying exams, around something else like that, where you know that you will not be able to commit this much time, that is okay. And also, that is another reason to try and build a larger team, because if you have a board of directors of 5 or 6, you will be able to delegate a lot more effectively, and not all of that work will come onto you. And so part of your work may be finding people so that they can take on that work as well. And again, being on both sides, undergraduate and graduate, I know that the periods of being incredibly busy often are at different times for graduate and undergraduate students. So if you have leaders from both sides of the university, that can be very helpful, so that when finals are happening for undergraduates, the graduate leaders can take on, and vice versa. For postdocs, and let me check, University of Leeds. The reason I was asking about the university, I have since learned that in some countries, postdocs are considered students and degree seeking. That is not the case in the United States. I do not believe it would be the case at the University of Leeds. So assuming that that is true, postdocs can be involved in the group, but not take a leadership role so that it remains student-led. Now, they can be actively engaged in general member meetings, and they can help coordinate, and they can be a part of the staff at different events. All of that, we encourage that participation. Basically, we ask that they do not take on that leadership role and don't start driving things. I fully recognize that in many cases, especially if you know a person or you are that person, you're like, well, of course, I wouldn't take it away from the students. This is mainly to ensure that it is a student-led operation here. Well, there may be some more questions trickling in. And I know I had referenced being a teacher previously. And one of the things that I learned is that if you ask people for feedback after they leave the classroom, often it doesn't happen. Not that I am assuming anything of you. So for the last few minutes, questions can continue trickling in, but I just dropped a link to a brief survey. This is not required, but I really do value the feedback of our community, whether they be APP students or future APP student leaders. So if you can take a few minutes now as we are wrapping up, I would very much appreciate any feedback. And that could be anything from you didn't get the information you wanted, you were hoping for something else, you didn't like my bow tie, whatever your feedback might be. I would really appreciate hearing that. Oh, I did get one more question. Oh, thank you, Asia. Already taken care of that. Yes, we will include the presentation in a follow-up email. And for those of you who maybe have a co-organizing team that were not able to join this call, we will also be posting a recording of this call once it is processed and all of that on our YouTube page. So you'll be able to share that with them too. So with that, of course, if you are still working on the feedback survey, please continue to do so. But in honor of everybody's time. I think it is about time to wrap everything up. I am just incredibly grateful that you took this time and you are thinking deeply about how you would fit into the Alt Protein project. I'm really glad that we were able to answer some of your questions. And I really do hope that we can keep the conversation going. If you have additional questions or your co-organizers do, you're welcome to email me, set up a time to chat, anything like that. Like I said, we'll be posting both the slides and the recording on our YouTube page. And I really just hope to see your application come through in the coming weeks. Our goal is to make this application process as open and inclusive as possible. So if you're here, that means we want to see it. It means that you care about scientific advancement, our environment, public health, animal welfare, and you want to do something about it. I hope that you recognize the power that you have in your universities, and the fact that you are here means that I want to read your application. All I have to do at this point is just say thank you again, and I really hope that we can grow together in this space. Hope to talk to you all soon. Thanks. And with that, actually, I have said my piece. I hope you can tell how excited I am about the prospect of welcoming so many of you to our cohort. And I'm sure at this point I have left some questions unanswered. So now I will turn it over to the Q&A session. As a reminder, you can do that in the chat or come off mute. And now I would love to hear from you, whether it be a specific question just for your university or a general question about the project and the application. Let's see. Question from Philip. More about the financial resources available. Yes, good question. So we have two funding streams available for our groups. The one we call our foundational grants, and this is basically default available for every group in good standing. As long as you are meeting community expectations, you are eligible for $500 US twice a year. That's really just for basic operating expenses, hosting events, if you're doing food tastings, getting the food, that sort of thing. There are also merit-based applications for what we call ecosystem building grants for somewhat larger projects that you need a little bit more of that capital to leave a lasting mark on your university. All right. Well, again, if you're still typing, please do. If you have not filled out that feedback form, I would greatly appreciate it. But I'll stick around for the next 15 minutes if anyone would like to ask their individual questions. Before I sign off, I just want to express my gratitude for the fact that you joined me here today. I appreciate the fact that, I mean, it demonstrates the enthusiasm. Because I'm sure it's very early or very late for some of y'all. As a reminder, I will be posting the recording of this on our YouTube page, and we'll be sending a follow-up email both with the link to that and to these slides again. And before I finish up my wrap-up, it looks like another question came in. Percentage of applicants GFI expects to accept. Percentage-wise, I really can't give you a number on that because we have learned to not predict how many applications will come in. I can say that we will probably have capacity to bring between 20 and 25 new groups on board. So however many applications we get, the percentage of that to get about 20 or 25. And it really does all come down to the capacity of our team. And actually, that is a great segue into what I was going to close into. Really just, again, emphasizing, we won't be able to accept everybody. We'll probably have to say no to some groups that would be amazing. And so no matter what happens, like, know that our primary goal is to support you. Whether that your primary goal is in scientific advancement or something else, that we strive to be an inclusive community that helps every student leader. I know the fact that you are here means that you are mission aligned. Whether you care about the science, the environmental impacts, public health, animal welfare, you are one of the student leaders and you've demonstrated that by being here. I'm really excited to read your application and learning about the ideas that you have for your university. So all I have to say now is, again, thank you. And I really look forward to growing with you and learning from you in the near future. You are welcome to sign off now or stick around for some individual questions if you would like. And it looks like one just came in. Okay, great question about how specific the focus needs to be in terms of like being related to alternative proteins. So as long as the initiatives that you're taking, maybe the events that you're hosting, are mission aligned, the most obvious one is that it's not like you would be purchasing and promoting animal products, then you are more than welcome to engage in other projects as kind of like a co-host or a collaboration. We do ask that everything that alternative alt protein project groups host is specifically mission driven about promoting alternative proteins. But again, having a presence from the group at related events, effective altruism events, vegan advocacy events, you know, we are totally open for that. If there is ever like an edge case, a question, then you work with your regional mentor and make sure that everything is going to align in the way that allows, again, the essentially brand, but the understanding of what the Alt Protein Project means to stay consistent. If I didn't fully answer your question, please ask a follow-up. Oh, absolutely. And talking about nutrition and sustainability, when that is, you know, in the scope of how do alternative proteins compare, both to whole plant foods and the animal products they would be replacing, that is 100% a part of the conversation, and we would encourage stuff like that. So, question about recruiting. I'm assuming this means that once your group is established, how you'd be recruiting to build a stronger base of support and build your leadership team. I'll speak on that, and if not, you can stop me. So we do have a set of brand guidelines, which are not meant to be restrictive, but basically just to make sure that everything looks the same, so people understand where you are coming from. We have plenty of templates and flyers that you can use, and either kind of just off the shelf or adjusting as you would like, so that you don't have to build everything from the ground up. A lot of that is specifically available to our groups. If you kind of want to get a feel for the types of resources available, again, that resource hub is great, as is the teaching library. That's really geared toward, oh, and my cat's back. That's really geared towards classroom material, but you can also pull from that as well. Everything we do is open access, so as long as you cite it appropriately, and now he's biting me, we are all good with that. Another great question about before the application cycle is complete, can you use GFI to advertise the organization, because it does have that, you know, name recognition. So in terms of saying that you are affiliated with GFI, unfortunately, you can't do that because that is not true yet. Now, down. One moment. Now, if you are wanting to kind of advertise to build that leadership team, and you want to say, our goal is to join the Alt Protein Project hosted by GFI, that is totally fine. As long as it is obvious that that is a future thing and not something that is currently true. I hope that answers your question. If not, again, please ask a follow-up. Okay. Well, it sounds like the questions have stopped. If something comes up in the next couple of days, or as soon as the... Oh, another one. But as I was about to say, like, as soon as the meeting ends, you can always email me. I'll drop my email here to make sure I didn't misspell anything. You can always reach out to me and we can do that. Let's see. Key points on flyers, promotional material have you been most effective? we have like a whole training program session all about this, but very briefly, what I would say is specify your message to your audience. Because for those of you who are already somewhat familiar with alternative proteins, you'll know there's a lot of different reasons why people can care about it. For the environmental sustainability, for the animal welfare, for human health, and biosecurity, food security. And so if you are going to different student interest groups, you can focus on those different aspects because they are all equally true. It's just what will your audience care most about? In terms of like promotional materials, I think, again, depending on who you're talking to, showing examples of what other groups have done can be incredibly powerful. Frankly, even myself, when I came onto this job, I was a little skeptical. And I would think things like, surely it's not like student groups are actually the catalysts of entire research programs. Like that seems a little far-fetched. It's not. And if you can, pulling from the resource hub and highlighting the groups that were able to do that, that can really be motivational for groups. If you have the ability to join and like give a brief presentation, again, pull from some of the intro material in our teaching library, and that can set you up for success as well. All right, wonderful. Well, I will end it there. Again, feel free to reach out. Take care.